And we are live. Hello, hello, hello. Looks live. You're right, Dustin. We are. How's it going?
Going pretty well. How about yourself, Kane?
Very well. Very well. Not as well as it could have been. My computer has just died completely now. Webcam wasn't working. Tried to restart it, and it's now giving me the Apple sign. It's just sitting there. So I'm on my other computer. I'm on my MacBook, and I don't have a mic, so I'm sounding a bit terrible. So apologies to all of the regular listeners who are used to some pretty decent sound quality coming through these speakers, but not today, unfortunately. How are you? Go on.
I was going to say, how strange that your computer died the day after Apple announced a new line of computers.
Funny how that works, isn't it?
Yeah, funny, isn't it?
It is funny. It's funny, but a big congratulations in order, Dustin.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah. So for those who weren't on the last podcast, my wife was expecting, and now we have a beautiful baby girl at home. So a baby girl who doesn't sleep all that much. My Google searches recently have been, my baby poops too much, my baby doesn't poop enough. What do I have to do for my newborn to get into an Ivy League school? When do things stop sucking? So that gives you a little bit of an indication. I have been heavily using sleep sounds though. So that is my one. I'll tie that back into the topic of this podcast.
Nice. That I used to use that quite a lot. White noise was the go-to Alexa skill for me, which was good. So yeah. So how was your sleep?
My sleep is near non-existent, but it's okay, right? You get occasional sleep and you come out the other side.
Yeah. Quick power nap. I would love to tell you it gets better, but Artie is 2 now, and he's up bang on 6 every morning. Therefore, so am I. And so you kind of, the later you go to bed, it's just basically the more you're eating into your own sleeping time.
Right.
So I tend to get early nights and early mornings now, which there you go. But yeah, wouldn't change it. So yeah, big congratulations, and welcome everybody to the show, the Wicked Show lined up. Which is sponsored by the Conversation Design Institute. They've sponsored, I think, next month. If you are looking to be a conversation designer, if you want to learn how to be a conversation designer, if you're looking for a place to start, you want to know how to do things properly, it's the role of the future, without a shadow of a doubt. The Conversational Academy, or the Conversational Design Institute, rather, which used to be the Conversational Academy, has the course for you. It's all online, do it at your own pace. There's certifications at the end of it. They've got a number of different courses in there as well. You can start out with the beginner course, you can move to intermediate, and there's a whole host of good stuff in there, and they're always adding to it as well. And VUX World listeners can save 25% if you go and join with the link that we'll include in the show notes and back through the LinkedIn. We'll go back through the LinkedIn comments and stuff like that, and we'll put the comment in there after the broadcast. So thank you to the Conversation Design Institute, and please do check it out. But today, Dustin, we're talking to Hannes Heikinheimo, who is joining us right now. Hello there, Hannes.
Hey.
How's it going? Very well. Thank you for joining us from Switzerland.
Finland, Helsinki.
Apologies. And first of all, I thought I was going to get your name wrong, which I think I might have done. And secondly, the location was always a worry of mine as well. But Finland, welcome to the show from Speechly, and we're going to get into the nuts and bolts of that very shortly. But first of all, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much, and thanks for having me.
It's a pleasure. Dustin, you've got a little bit of experience with Speechly, am I right?
Yeah, absolutely. We've worked together, or attempted to work together. We haven't quite found that project where we can make it work, but definitely know Speechly back to the pre-Speechly days, even the Speech Grinder days. So excited to speak about what you're doing, what's new, and introduce you to our audience as well.
Nice. Ash Daswani, Dustin, says, congrats on the baby.
Oh, thank you so much. Thank you.
There you go. So Hannes, tell us a bit about yourself then. Tell us what you do, how you got involved with Speechly, one of the co-founders, so you've obviously been there from the very beginning. I imagine it's your brainchild. So tell us a bit about yourself, how you founded Speechly, and then we'll get into a little bit about what Speechly does. But tell us a little bit about yourself first.
Yeah, so my background is in machine learning. So I started my career in the academia doing research on stuff related to data mining and machine learning. Got my PhD back in 2010, so around 10 years ago. And after that, been mostly active in the industry with projects related to data, all sorts of projects. I started my first industry data project already back in 2007 when I was doing my PhD. That was in Google in Zurich in the Google Maps team. After I got my PhD, I joined Nokia. There was working on predictive analytics, recommendation systems. And then a couple years later, I joined Rovio, the company behind the Angry Birds games. There I was working on data engineering, basically the big data infrastructure for Rovio's games. And then I joined a Finnish, after that, the Finnish consulting company called Reactor, and there I first worked on data engineering, but then my focus shifted more towards machine learning, especially natural language understanding. And then the last big project that I did for Reactor was actually for Apple in the Siri project. And there I was one of the 4 natural language understanding engineers working on the first version of the Finnish Siri. And that was back in 2015, 2016. And then coming back from that project, 2016, Speechly was founded, and that's sort of the background of me and the company as well.
So you've been in machine learning for quite a while. You worked in NLU recently before founding Speechly. Why did you stick with NLU? What's the interest there for you when there's so much in the machine learning space that you could have gone into?
Well, I think fundamentally, I think language is very interesting part of the whole AI and machine learning, and you end up there in very interesting machine learning problems. So that was one of, I think it's very, very core in AI intelligence. It's also human intelligence. Language is a sort of a very integrated part of who we are as humans and as intelligent beings. So that's sort of the core intelligence, the core sort of interest for me in languages in general and machine learning. But I think also it's a very exciting time to be in language modeling and natural language understanding at the moment. There's a lot of interesting stuff happening there, has been already for several years. First, the whole language embedding things, and then around the time 2015 and before that, the whole deep learning and speech, and you saw this massive improvements in speech recognition, and I think it was 2016 when we had these first papers on human parity in speech recognition. And then there was this Alexa, Amazon Alexa was taking off, and I just got really excited about that whole thing, and that's sort of the reason why I stuck with it, because it really intrigues me, but it's also a extremely interesting time at the moment to be within that domain.
And I'm curious, so as we just talked about, you are based in Finland, and I had to look up the numbers really quickly. It looks like there's 5.4 million native Finnish speakers, not even in the top 100 of languages worldwide. Do you feel like that has been that added a bit of a challenge for you, or not so much?
I think it's well, of course. I mean, the language itself is very small, and the market is very very small. So we're a bit in the outskirts of these bigger markets in a sense, especially when it comes to language. So if you want to sort of conquer the world, you're not going to do it with Finnish. That's for sure. But the Finnish is it's an interesting language, and it's very different to these like more the more traditional European languages, of course, like English, French, Italian, German, Spanish. It works in a bit different way. So as a sort of a language enthusiast, and also coming from a little bit different way of thinking, I think it also helps, because one sort of trait of Finnish is that the grammar is extremely complex. So it's like one of the most complex grammars of any language in the world. So if you can master Finnish, if you can really model that, it's pretty easy to sort of go to other languages. So we started off with Finnish, and I think that was a good move, in the sense that, mastering Finnish, other languages might feel like easier sort of targets to model them.
What is it? Can you give us an example of some of that more complex Finnish kind of grammar, and what challenges that might have produced that might help people? Because I mean, everyone says that English is a difficult language to do because it's so vast. So it'd be nice just to understand a little bit about, some of those examples of the complexity of the Finnish grammar. Have you got any examples?
Yeah, so Finnish, there's probably like these memes in the internet, if you're interested in that. Basically, like, Finnish works in a very different way. So basically, you add suffixes, and there's there's a lot of let me check that I'm gonna check one. So I'm talking about are
you familiar with Finnish, Dustin?
Yeah.
No, not too much, but yeah, a little bit of research. I read, for example, that maybe even like vowel and consonant length might even change the meaning of words.
Yeah, so there's inflection. So you basically inflect the word. So for one word, you have multiple different formats. And so for a basic word, I think there's 16 like inflections in just the singular form. And then you can add basically as many suffixes. So it works very differently to English, which is more sort of preposition heavy. But in Finnish, you add these suffixes, and you basically morph the word. So the morphology of Finnish is extremely complex. So I think there's like, in Germany, I think there's like 5 forms of inflection of a basic word. In Finnish, you have like 16. So it's very, but if you're like, there's literally a lot of these memes in the internet about the complexity of Finnish. So if you're interested, you can find them pretty easily.
Nice. You mentioned that a while ago, and we'll get on to speech here in a minute, but you mentioned a while ago that now is the perfect time, or an exciting time, I think you said, to be involved in speech technology. Why is that, and what's exciting you so much about where things are at today?
So I think we're sort of in the verge. I think everything needed to really, like, you have these, the speech recognition, you have human parity. Basically, for some test sets, you have even like superhuman accuracy in transcription. Then you have this, like, NLU has just, had its like image moment. You have this GPT-3 and all of these like things that you see that the whole thing is sort of taking off, but it's still at its infancy also in a certain extent. So if you think about voice interfaces, for instance, they're really taking off. So there's like significant market penetration for voice technology, but it's still a little bit bubbling under. So you haven't really, what happened with like touch with the like iPhone hasn't really yet happened with voice. And so I think we're in the verge of having that explosion that hasn't really yet happened. But you have the technology and it's advancing in leaps, and you don't really know what's going to happen next, like with these GPT-3s and all of these. So it's a very exciting time because we really don't know like what things are, how does the landscape look in a year, 2, 3, and so on. So it's really, that I think is very exciting.
What do you think is keeping it from crossing that chasm and becoming more or not necessarily mainstream, because it definitely is mainstream in a sense, but becoming something that is more established, becoming a touch interface style prevalence?
Yeah, so that's something that, I think the problem, like the technology is there, so the accuracy is there. So it's not an issue anymore about accuracy, whether the systems can really understand you. So so the speech recognition accuracy is there, the natural language understanding accuracy is there. The problem, I think, with the current sort of generation of devices is that the user experience is still not that great. And the reason is not in the accuracy side, which I think, like, traditionally people had thought that that's the issue, but it's not that there anymore. The issue is really in the way these systems give feedback. And so the user experience, in terms of what the end user experience is not yet that good. And that's exactly the problem that sort of Speechly is tackling.
Nice. That's a nice enough segue. Tell us then what Speechly is and how Speechly is tackling that particular problem of voice, in particular, having to use your kind of phrase, the kind of user experience not being fantastic. What is Speechly and what does it do?
Yeah, so Speechly is, so basically we're a company that developers can use to create voice user interfaces. So we provide technology, we provide a product that is basically technology for creating voice user interfaces, and especially where our sweet spot is in terms of like where we target or what the context in which our technology works really well are the touchscreen devices, where you have a screen, you can touch the screen, but you can also talk to the device. And so that's sort of the target of our technology. And what's special about us is that we really focus to the sort of the feedback side of the voice user experience. So really making the user experience such that the feedback that you get from the voice user interface is very fast and very responsive and reactive. And and we've developed our own technology. And what's special about our technology is that we've developed a spoken language understanding technology, like contrary to what traditionally voice user interfaces work. They work such that basically they wait for a person to stop talking and then they react. And that works great for things like turn on the lights or play something on Spotify. But if you try anything more lengthier, if you have a more complex task that takes longer to express, that sort of that doesn't work anymore, because if you say something long and you get the feedback at the very end, something might have gone wrong at the midway, and basically then you get a very poor user experience. So what we provide is a spoken language understanding technology that basically starts to make sense of what the user is saying the second they start to talk. And what that enables is basically instant feedback for the voice user interface experience. And if you we mentioned iPhone there, and what was the very cool thing about iPhone, what I think is sort of in the core, what made iPhone the iPhone, was the very intuitive the touchscreen experience, where you could swipe and zoom and pinch and do all of those things. And touchscreens were not a new thing when the iPhone was presented, but what was really new was the very rapid feedback that the iPhone was able to sort of produce when you did those touching gestures. And if you remember the pre-iPhone touchscreens, they were like you did something and a second later something happened. So they were the user experience in terms of the feedback of the system was very poor. And what iPhone did was that, because the screen was so responsive, you had a very nice and natural experience. And that's the exact thing that we're doing at Speechly, but for voice. So we're developing technology where the response for those voice commands is very fast, very snappy, and that sort of that enables a much more smoother and faster and reactive and nicer experience for voice.
Gunderson, I think you not getting your sound there.
Sorry about that. Sorry about that. Yeah, I was going to say, tell us about some of the things that you've enabled that wouldn't have been able to be done without that responsive speech to text.
Yeah. So there's a sort of a couple of things, and I have some demos or a demo that I could show as well. But what the rapid feedback gives you is, first of all, it gives you sort of better recovery from errors. So like even if speech recognition is in accuracy, like in human parity, actually human parity isn't that great all the time. So even when people speak, they misunderstand each other, they mishear each other. So errors, you'll always get errors. But the key thing with rapid feedback is that if you get the error, you can also like recover very fast from the error, because you get the immediate feedback from the error, and you can stop and then you can correct and you can just continue. And the error doesn't cost as much as when it happens at the very end, after which you've like you've uttered for 15 seconds and then you get the error. Then it costs a lot, and then it's very frustrating experience. But if you get the error at the moment that it happens, you can just correct it very fast and just continue. A bit like you're typing and you type and you mistype and you see the error again, and it's very fast to sort of recover from that. So that's the one of the benefits that you can do, because like the errors in voice interfaces can be very annoying, but if you can recover from them fast, they're not so painful. So that's one thing. And then the other thing is that if the system is understanding you and you get the immediate feedback from that as well, that gives you the confidence to go on. And so you don't need to limit yourself to these very short utterances and very short use cases with very short utterances, like turn on the lights. But if you get the feedback that the system is understanding you, you actually get the validation that, okay, I can just continue. And you can go on and on as long as the system is understanding you. So that sort of enables a lot more complex use cases, a lot more sort of, these workflows with multiple steps and so on. So those are sort of the things that you can do with our technology that's not that great with other technology.
And presumably that must rely on the screen then. So I'm just imagining, like, if you speak to, I'm just making sure that they're all on mute before I go blurting names out. If you speak to Alexa, for argument's sake, normally when you say something, you ask it to do something, or you say something to Alexa or Google Assistant, and you kind of know what you want to say, and then you'll just say it, and then you'll finish saying it, and then you'll see whether it's heard you correctly or not. I'm trying to imagine a time when I'd be in the middle of saying something and then see that it hasn't recognized what was going on, and then how I would correct myself, kind of thing. So I'm just wondering, and obviously in an audio only environment with a smart speaker, probably not going to see that unless the light starts flashing red, but then it must know that it hasn't heard me correctly for it to flash red. So that's kind of like something that it's almost like the feedback is on me as a user to determine whether or not the system has heard me. Is that right? And so that's one question. And the other one is, does this rely on the screen for this to be effective?
Yeah, I think that the screen and the visual feedback there is in a big role. And if you think of like human conversation, and if you think of like talking like over the phone versus over the phone where you can only hear each other, versus in a video conference call, or even like face-to-face physically, the face-to-face communication is a lot more efficient. And like if you have a very complex thing that you want to explain to your friend, probably you want to do it face-to-face, because it's a lot more efficient. And a part of that efficiency is that you have these other modalities at your disposal, not just the verbal modality, but you can see the gestures, the expressions, and you basically see that visual feedback from your discussion partner, like whether they're understanding, whether they like what you say, whether they're comfortable with what you're saying, and then you can iterate with those sort of other types of feedback that you can read from that other person. And that's the reason why this face-to-face communication is so much more efficient, because you have these modalities at your disposal, which make it more efficient. And that's the same thing if you have a screen. You get that feedback, and you can sort of iterate your message a lot more faster, and exchange information a lot more faster. And the thing with visual is that it's non-interruptive, in the sense that the system can give you feedback, but it doesn't interrupt you. It doesn't interrupt your verbal flow in the same way that a device that like responds only with voice synthesis. So it's like more full duplex in that sense, that there's an exchange of, like, there's a channel of and there's more than one channel where you can exchange information. And also the human brain, like the verbal and then this sort of the visual parts of the human brain are very separate. So that's why you can talk but also ingest visual information very effectively.
And we've got a related question coming in from the audience. Lisa Vigor, sorry if I mispronounced your last name, but the question essentially is, do we run a risk of confusing users? We've taught them how to use touchscreens, we've taught them how to use speech technology, and now there's that combination and perhaps a change in the way that we suggest the technology be used. Do we run a risk, especially if we're a front runner, an early adopter of your technology, do we run a risk of confusing users?
Yeah, I think when you introduce a new modality like voice to a touchscreen app that people are like only used to tapping, and you introduce a new modality, there's a certain learning curve to that, for sure. So it's like when you introduce any new technology, there's a little bit of learning curve. The good thing with voice, though, is that you can add it to a touchscreen application in a way that doesn't really, like, you don't need to change the application very much if you add the option of voice there. So you can have the application work as though people, like how people have used to using it, but you can add the voice there so that they can start testing out the combination of voice and touch, sort of very with low barrier, or without sort of redesigning everything. So, I mean, I can show, perhaps it's a good idea that I show our demo, because it might give some idea, first of all, how our tech works, but also like how you can sort of integrate voice to a website or a mobile app, really like disturbing greatly the sort of traditional experience that people are used to.
Yeah, go for it. Yeah, let's have a look at the demo. I think it's an interesting, while you kind of fire the screen up, I think it's interesting, the whole concept of voice enabling touchscreens, because one of the things that was kind of spoke about quite a lot during the first kind of lockdown period and the first COVID wave and all that sort of stuff was how there's potential for, like, you know, voice enabling touchscreens, voice enabling, you know, mobile devices, in-store kind of point of sale systems, all those kind of things. And how there was even research done that was saying that people would prefer to use voice in certain situations. So I think that's kind of what I'm interested in taking a look at, because I think also one of the things that have been spoke about a lot over the last sort of like 6 months, although I haven't actually seen that many examples of it, is this voice enabling apps. You know, we had Mike Zagorsek from Soundhound on last week or the week before, talking about the work they've been doing with Pandora, in the Pandora app. Obviously working with a load of car manufacturers, voice enabling the units in cars, and all of them have got screens these days. And so that's a combination of touch and voice, and the whole concept of, one, voice playing a big role off the back of COVID, and two, voice becoming part of what's already there, becoming part of the app, becoming part of the car, not necessarily being this standalone thing over here that you need to go out of your way to do, but, you know, all of those kind of modalities converging. So I'd be interested in seeing a little bit of how Speechly looks in practice, and then maybe we can get into how can people actually make this happen for themselves, and then what's working behind the scenes and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So it looks like we've got your screen here. Let's have a peek at what's going on over here.
Yeah. So I mean, this is our demo app that we've been working on now, and the idea that this is sort of a very sort of skimmed down version of your your usual e-commerce site, like fashion e-commerce site. And the way it works is that you have these, you have these filters, and you use those to sort of filter out what you're interested in, and so people can use this as their sort of as they're used to. So touching, like filtering, and sort of using the filters. But what you can, but the problem here is, of course, that especially for a small, like, handheld device like a mobile phone, like using these filters for an e-commerce site that has a lot of these brands is like, can be like very sort of annoying. So it's not that easy. It's not that great. It's slow. It's tedious to work. So what you can do is you can just add a voice button here, and then it doesn't change the actual layout of the site or the page that much, but you can just add the microphone there, and then you can have people, instead of like tapping the filters, they can just say what they want. So something like, show me sneakers for men by Nike in white, black, and can you sort by price? So you can then introduce the voice, and they can try it out and see how it sort of changes the experience. And as you see, it's like very handy just use the filters, and you get that immediate reaction, and then because you get that immediate reaction, you can then verbally react to that and sort of iterate those filters very, very fast. And that's the basic idea.
So for those listening on the podcast who've only got the audio, essentially what we've got is a website mock-up of an e-commerce kind of retailer that sells shoes and t-shirts and whatnot, with filters across the top, which you'd be used to seeing if you use any of the online retailers. Then you can use those different filters to filter by price or men's or clothing type and brand and stuff like that. And in the demo that we just heard of Hannes kind of going through that kind of utterance that he just said, the screen was changing. And I think that I had you on screen there, actually, Hannes, when you were doing it. So maybe we'll do another one so that people can see it again on the screen. So what's happening for those tuning in on the podcast is that the results are changing essentially in real time as the utterance is coming in. So yeah, do you want to give us another example, Hannes? And we'll try and run that again.
Now clear and show me jackets by Jack and Jones in red and size extra large. And can you short by price again? So that's another example. Cool.
So what would be interesting is, so I think that the technology is fantastic, and it's good how it's showing you what you're saying in real time as well, which I'm pretty sure Siri used to do and now doesn't anymore since they changed the interface, which is actually frustrating because you do need to wait to see whether it's got what you've said. So that's interesting. My question is, and I don't know if you've got any data on this from the customers that are using it and things like that, is that so what people are kind of being trained in how to use these assistants, and Siri is, I think the last numbers that Apple kind of published was something like 25 billion utterances have hit Siri since it's kind of began, and it's somewhere in the region of is it something like 25 million? I can't remember what the numbers are anyway, but I know Google Assistant said it's 500 million active users per month. And Siri published something or said something in one of the recent announcements. It was not too far away. So, but my wondering is, I use Siri all the time because I have to, because I've got an iPhone. And I tend to use it for the kind of, it starts off a web search for me, or it opens an app for me, or sometimes it will send a WhatsApp or a message, or it will add an Evernote. But most of the time, I'm kind of using it just to get somewhere quickly. I'd be interested in how your usage of Google Assistant might be similar or different, Dustin, on the Android. But I kind of tend to use the phone assistant. Maybe it's because it's the capability that it has. It's not actually that good at full end-to-end kind of use cases. But I tend to use it to get to something quickly. Alexa, on the other hand, and Google Assistant, I tend to use those, of the typical use cases like play music and add things to your list and setting times and stuff like that. And so, but if I was to tally up all of the things I say to my assistant right now, apart from when I get into an experience, but most of the things that I say do tend to be fairly kind of short. So I wonder, and this is maybe something, and first, Dustin, you can tell us whether you're thinking the same, and then Hannes, it'd be interesting to get your thoughts on what the data is showing you. But I wonder whether people are being trained right now to speak in slightly shorter utterances. Is that your experience as well, Dustin? Do you tend to use the same sort of shorter utterances, or do you tend to go for something more longer and precise?
It definitely depends on the need and what I'm asking for. It all comes down to, in my mind, this is the big challenge, right? And Hannes, I'd be interested in hearing your thoughts on this. Is, are customers being trained, or is this just what they want to do? Obviously, here and our audience as well, we're very bullish on this as an interface and as a mechanism and as what you can do for it. But I wonder, I wonder as well if we're pushing a string sometimes. Is this what customers want to do, or do they not feel like they can do it yet? Have we trained them? Hannes, what have you seen? Once your customers integrate this, are they leading towards more complex, longer phrases now that they're more able to handle that?
Yeah, so I think it depends on the task. I think there is a natural sort of tendency of people when they first try voice user interfaces, they try to talk like they're talking to a human, like very politely and using these carrier phrases and all of that. But then when you start getting accustomed to talking and you realize that it's a computer, you start to sort of command it more with like short, snappy like commands, and I think that's natural. And then when you use a lot of this voice, I think there's a natural tendency to sort of trim down the commands and just do the essential bits. I think that's sort of a law of nature, like minimum energy type of thing. But then it depends on the task a lot. So like if you think of one example, and I could show a demo of that as well. We have an application for grocery shopping, and if you think of like a family with children shopping groceries, and they typically tend to shop quite a lot, so you can have a lot of items on your shopping list. And we have this application that I could demo where you just basically list out items. And so you might have 100 items. It's a very long list, and if you're able to do it in a way where you can just list out all of the stuff that you want, and you see the feedback coming in, and if you've done it like 10 times, 30 times, 50 times, you want to just burp it out and get it done and over with. And if the voice user interface supports that you just want to you want to get it over with, you want to say the items you want, and then it's that, then it's very good that the user interface doesn't get on the way of that. So if you think of doing something like that, like grocery list, a long grocery list with something like Alexa, and you always need to say the wake up word, and then you say one item or a couple of items, and then you listen to the voice synthesis response of it, and some items might get mixed up and all of that. So it depends on the task.
I think that I found one the other day which I'll show you. So I think you touched on something there. One is the ability to just be able to say very long phrases and do a very granular specific search. And Mike Zagorczyk demoed the SoundHound capability that showed something very similar, wasn't it, Dustin, the other week? Which is very similar to kind of how you displayed there, like, show me black sneakers under $100, men's size 8. And that's really good. I can totally see the value of that if you want something specific. But you touched on something there that I think was quite good, which is, and I come across this the other day when I was trying to do some simple calculations. I was trying to use Siri just to add up a couple of bank items on my bank. So I had my bank app open, and I was trying to use Siri to just do some quick calculations, not everything, just like here and there. And what I was realizing is that it because it's trying to get you the answer, the mic doesn't stay open. The mic will only stay open for a certain length of time. So if you pause while you're trying to work out whether you want to add that calculation in or not, it stops listening and gives you a result, and then you can't continue the calculation. So that was frustrating. And then the other thing is that if you read the wrong number, so if I say something like, 12, add £11.32, add 64, add 32, I mean 22, you can't do that. You can't correct yourself. So in that instance, it's not necessarily what you were explaining, which is that having verbal or visual feedback. It's me knowing that I've said something wrong and that I need to correct myself, and it's not quite doing it for me. So I think those two things, maybe being able to leave the mic open a bit longer for you to be able to have a slower expression, and also for you to be able to correct a mistake that you've found, is, I think I can see the total value in that. Are both of those things something that Speechly and the Speechly technology can do?
Yeah, because people always think that it's the computer that makes the mistakes, but actually when people utter things, they make mistakes as well, and they realize that, okay, now I said something I wasn't supposed to say, and I meant that. So, you know, when you think this, when you're expressing yourself in this stream of consciousness type of way, which is very natural to humans, and I think one of the problems with these assistants, when you need to do very concise, you need to figure out first what you say, and then you say what people want to really do is that they just want to start talking and then go along as they sort of figure out what they want to say at the same time as they say, and you get this stream of consciousness where you might need to correct yourself every once in a while, and so that type of streaming feedback and the type natural language understanding that we provide enables that, which I think is very powerful.
So what's the process then to add voice to a screen? Someone's got an app or they've got a piece of software. What is the process to actually do that, to add let's take that e-commerce website example. What's the process to turn a e-commerce filter into a voice experience, voice user interface?
Yeah, so it's actually pretty simple. There are a couple of steps. So first of all, what you need to, like for Speechly, we have a dashboard where you go and create an app ID, and you have a basic configuration. So I can just actually quickly show you that. Let me share the screen. So can you see the screen?
Yeah.
So let me.
And if you don't mind, talk through what you're doing as well, because there's going to be people listening in later.
Yeah. So I'm basically going to the Speechly dashboard, and I'm creating an app ID that I can then use. So basically, you create a new app ID. You select the language. You select the configuration, and there's a ready-made configuration here. So there's this view where you can go and select your intents, your entities, and then add some example utterances with the Speechly annotation language that you see here. So that's one thing that you need to do. And then the second thing that you need to do is basically, let me I'll share another screen. Sorry for.
All right.
So the other thing that you need to do is just a second. I'll open the tab first. And so
that first thing there you were showing is essentially you just creating your interaction model, essentially. So presumably whoever has the website will need to go in there, figure out all of those filter values, all those filter categories, all of the kind of data points that they expect people to communicate and populate them inside there. So you need to essentially turn your the options that you want to give people, or the things that you want to allow them to control, you need to turn those things from the website into an interaction model, essentially.
Yeah. So this is, for instance, the fashion demo, and what the API for that provides is, if I say this, show me sneakers for men by Nike. So what the API produces is these intents and these entities that it provides in a sort of a streaming manner. So you need to configure the application so that it gives so that the entities and intents sort of match your application. So that's the one step. And then the other step is that you need to integrate it in your app, and that's done with a client that we provide, an integration client. For instance, here we have, if you go to our GitHub site, we have a React client that you can use to basically like match the API, the entities and the intents and all of those with the actual elements in your UI. And what's nice here is that if you think of like the reactive programming paradigm of something like React, for instance, where you sort of connect streams of actions, like the user actions, to the components, and the stream sort of manipulates the different UI components. This sort of streaming type of response that we provide is a very natural fit to that type of paradigm. So basically what we provide is a stream that you can connect to whatever UI component in your UI, and then you basically just change the state of those UI components based on the values that you get from the stream of intents and entities that our API provides, and that's basically it.
So so when you connect that up to your website, what's happening is that you're taking the audio, converting it into speech, figuring out which kind of entity is being hit, and then you're sending that back to the website so that on the front end of the website, they can actually manipulate those elements on the screen.
Exactly. So basically what our client here does is that it takes care of recording the audio. For instance, in this React client case, it takes care of recording the audio with your browser. It sends that audio to our back end, to the API that you've defined with the language of your application, with the intents and the entities that you're interested in. And then what you get back in a streaming manner, our API tries to figure out as fast as it can, as you're talking, what are the intents and entities that you're talking about, and then it streams them back. And then you can use those events as like events that then trigger state changes in your UI. So you can, for instance, in the demo that I showed you, you can then change the filter values of your filtering search based on those different entities that you get back.
Cool. Impressive stuff, Dustin.
Very impressive. How would a developer get started using this?
So what I suggest is that you go to our site, speechly.com, and you check out the developer page there. We actually got a new site out last week, so go and check it out. I think it's pretty cool. And so you go to the site and you'll find tutorials for the main sort of UI frameworks, and just go. We have a couple of like easy to start off tutorials. So just follow the tutorials. They'll show you how you configure, how you integrate it into your app, and just go from there.
Cool. That's wicked. I might have to give it a go on the VUX World website. I think that's what we need, is the ability for people just to ask for a topic, and we just fire up a podcast.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's wicked. Well,
Yeah,
go on, Dustin.
I was just going to say, one of the things I like quite a bit is you've got quite a nice free tier as well. You don't see that much with these types of APIs. Give you a lot of hands-on experience before you decide to buy.
Exactly. So we have a generous free tier, so you can try it out and see how it works, and then see what you want to do.
Nice. Well, we'll stick that link in the show notes as always, and I think that this is, the whole concept of putting voice interfaces onto software and screen-based devices is I think that it's started getting a bit of attention over the summer. We've been talking about it obviously for years, and I think that tools like this are absolutely vital in making that possible for people, because it's like the amount of times I get asked, how would you voice enable an app, or how would you voice enable a website? It's a question that comes up quite a lot, and I think having a tool that's relatively simple to get up and running with and make that happen is fantastic, especially with decent technology behind the scenes.
Yeah, and the real cool thing about voice is that if you add that voice button there and you enable some features, and people will try it out, you'll actually see what people try out, and so if you don't support that, the features that people try out, you can add them, and you'll see like what people are trying with voice. So it's it's easier to see how the experience is.
Cool. Wicked. Well, Hannes, it's been an absolute pleasure. Where can people follow you? I'll put the Twitter link as well on the website. But if people want to, follow your kind of musings in this space, where can they do that?
Cool. So yeah, we have so our site, we have our blog, we have our Twitter, we have our LinkedIn. All of those are good places where something interesting happens. We post it there. So check those out and follow those. There's going to be some really cool stuff coming in those.
Cool. Wicked. Well, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in on LinkedIn and YouTube and on the podcast. And again, apologies for my mic quality. It's been, I don't feel right not having this microphone right here like this. This is usually how I kind of get down. But yeah, it's been an absolute pleasure. Congratulations once again, Dustin, on the newest member of the family. And I'm sure we'll hear a lot more stories about how you're getting on over the next few weeks as well, if you manage to get some sleep.
I hope so.
Cool. Nice one.